Does your dog's behavior journey include a holistic look at the stressors in their life? If not, your work may not be as efficient and effective and as ethical as you'd like it to be. I'm Gabrielle Johnson, and I own Best Life Dog Services, where I specialize in working with aggressive behavior and nervous system dysregulation. And when I first start working with a client, I gather a lot of information. And that information does not just pertain to the presenting problems. The presenting problems are often the behaviors that are causing the most distress to the human. And sometimes that may extend to the contexts or the stressors that we perceive our dog to find the most distressing. But often our first foray into supporting our dog is focused around the behaviors that are causing us the most distress. They feel overtly stressful. Our dogs' fear or anxiety or big feelings feel very overt and clear. These may be the most unsafe situations, or they may be the most triggering situations for us. And that's really normal and natural. But my job as the behavior consultant is to help look at things from the dog's perspective and consider all of the different spaces where the dog is experiencing stress, because these things are all linked together. So if I have a dog who is, let's say, the big presenting concern is that they are reactive on their walks. And maybe this is in the form of like barking and lunging. It's very activating for the human. It feels very unsafe. The dog is having big, clear emotions. Well, I may also find out that that dog is noise sensitive, but because it's not evolving into full-blown panic attacks, it's not necessarily on our radar immediately. And I may find that when visitors come over, the dog is engaging in a fidget and fawn response, which denotes high levels of stress, but may not be as overtly distressing to the humans. And so it may even get missed and perceived as their dog really loving visitors. And I may find out that the dog is funny about slippery floors, or they are scared of the vacuum in the house, or there may be these other things that feel like they're not a super huge deal from our human perspective, but are actually from the dog's perspective creating a lack of an environment where they can feel 100% safe, which is a huge deal. I may also find, let's say I have a dog who is baselining higher than ideally on the stress scale, as dysregulated dogs are, and they really struggle with resilience to stress, and they really struggle to self-regulate. And because they seem to have all this extra energy, is often how it's perceived, the dog is playing 30 minutes straight of fetch, an hour straight of fetch, 2 hours of fetch a day. And what's happening is this dog, who is already too high on the stress scale, is going up even higher just through this exercise. And because they have that lower resilience and because they lack the skills to bring themselves back down, they're getting stuck up there. And so this attempt to support the dog through this activity is actually making things a lot harder and a lot worse. And let's say that, as is the case in most behavior cases, there is an underlying health component, the most likely of which is to be orthopedic. And so now you may have a dog who has some orthopedic issues going on, who's playing this high impact repetitive activity for a really long time every day. And so now we're not only seeing that spike the stress levels, but we're seeing that exacerbate the pain issues. This is an example of taking a holistic look at stress reduction. Sometimes the things that make the biggest difference aren't even necessarily the management that we put around the presenting problem, but all of the different shifts that we make around the other aspects of stress in the dog's life, and the ability to take a look at their enrichment and make sure that we're not just checking off boxes, but that we really are tailoring the dog's enrichment plan to their specific needs. In behavior therapy, we have sort of 3 overarching main goals: to reduce baseline stress levels, and as part of that, reduce the intensity of the stress response to the specific triggers. But just by reducing those baseline stress levels, the dog is going to have a bigger window of tolerance for other stressors in their life. The other is to increase the ability to self-regulate, which goes along with reducing those stress levels, because the stress levels have to be low enough that the dog is at least in a place where they're trying to cope with the stress versus so high on the scale that they are gearing up for a survival response, or are in a survival response. And then the third is resilience to stress, because stress is going to happen. And so we want to help these dogs become more resilient to stress. In other words, decrease the amount of time that it takes for them to bounce back after a stress event. And this is true for dogs who struggle with dysregulated nervous systems. So dogs with anxiety disorders, trauma disorders, who are dealing with hyperarousal, hypoarousal, who are experiencing chronic stress. And this is also going to be true for dogs who may not be dysregulated, but who are on a behavior journey for a related behavior concern. All of these pieces still are going to be vitally important through and through, whether it's an intra-household aggression case primarily, or there's no aggression at all. And we're super excited because we are launching a webinar series on September 13th, and each of the live 90-minute webinars dives into one of those pillars. So we're going to walk folks through that experience of taking a holistic look at reducing their dog's stress, at that management and enrichment piece, at this piece that's vitally important to our training setups. And then in the second one, we'll do a deep dive on self-regulation, and the third will be a deep dive on resilience. It should be super fun. We're going to have live question and answer opportunities. There will be recordings for folks who can't join live. And we anticipate that folks will walk away with a better understanding of how to support their dog's needs, how to make their behavior journey more effective, more efficient, more ethical. And not only will folks walk away with that understanding, but they'll walk away with practical pieces that they can apply to their work with their dogs. I hope we'll see you there.